Why we would never agree on music, part 2. Yes, this is part 2, so if you didn't see part 1, just click the little link there and watch part 1 before you come into this one. But this is part 2, and I'm trying to wrap up everything and really explain why we would never really agree on music. I'm not trying to be, all bleak and doomy and gloomy, but as much as an optimist I may be, I'm seeing certain factors that will just simply cause us to not always agree with certain topics like music. And there are 3 things I really cite that would really affect this most. First of all is Christian maturity. There are some topics that mature Christians could handle and understand more than immature Christians. There's your exposure to the world or your bubble, and then there's just a simple willingness to learn and to even change based on the things that you learn. When it comes to music, we find ourselves in 2 particular categories. The first one is the very zealous Christian who comes into contact with God and is like, you know what, I don't want this secular music, throw it out, get rid of everything, all the music, gone. Then there's the second type who struggles with what they listen to and are not at the place yet to totally give up everything. Most of us stay in these stages for quite some time, but both stages have a level of immaturity to them. The one who wrestles with what they listen to usually struggles for quite some time because they are still in the place where they know some of the stuff that they listen to is really garbage, but they still like it and they are driven by their likes and desires. But they still listen to some gospel music, it helps them, they like it. It also helps them clear their conscience in certain aspects. And if you ask them about their positioning, they will most likely defend it. They'll say something like, it's just a little slows, So they usually have their hands in both, whatever you put your hands into. Then there's the zealous type, those who throw away their entire music collection and they just bask in the idea of having 24/7 gospel radio stations. This is cool, but then they are very closed off about particular ideas that go against what they believed in the first place that made them throw away their music. And they are usually closed-minded when it comes to a lot of topics, and they are often pretty much sure that their view 5-10 years ago is still solid, concrete. This is noble, but their closed-mindedness often blocks some aspects of growth in this area and other areas as well. And even the fact that they are so confident in their views, they never test their own views or their own opinions, so they may be wrong, but they would never know. As I said, we start on one of these mindsets and then we begin to grow. Either one of the 2, we might even switch between one of the 2 in the course of our lives, but this is where we begin to grow. And just know, this is not to say that I'm condemning any particular one of them. I believe that there are many truths in both of them and we need to find the right balance. What happens is that we are so polarized that we end up missing particular truths in many different opinions. What we need to do is understand the truths and the faults about both opinions and find the proper balance. I see how it applies to me because I started off very laid back with my music. I used to turn on to 94.1. Yes, I'm old. And I used to switch between all the other channels too, and not everything that I used to listen to on the other radio stations were great, but I used to still find a way back to 94.1. And it was like that for a while until I had my own personal desire to grow, because we all know that the person who isn't concerned about growth isn't really concerned about what they take in. So I decided, hey, I don't want to listen to this music anymore. I just decided to get rid of all my music, secular music, and listen to gospel alone. So I started off being very much laid back, and then I switched to the extreme gospel only point of view. I'm not in the stage where I have these, old CDs and cassettes to throw away, but at the same time, I am not totally closed-minded when it comes to particular things, based on particular truths. Music, like some other topics, is not explicitly talked about in the Bible. It has a lot to do with the principles in the Bible. So zeal alone can't take you very far. You have to be diligent to be good. This is why when Jesus walked on the earth, there were multitudes following him, and he would say something and they would be totally confused. But only those close to him, his disciples, will really get the true revelation and meaning for what he said. And this is what we're supposed to be doing. Unfortunately, the masses will always be the masses. So this is why we would never really agree on music. There will always be someone who, after 5 years, realize that, hey, soca not so bad. I've learned to control my ways, and I realized, hey, I could enjoy this music. This is some music that God put here for me to enjoy. But then there will always be someone who says, what they doing soca? I now come from the carnival scene. I don't want to hear no soca. And there will always be this conflict. And if we realize that it's not so much about the music, it's more about us and our condition, there'll be less arguments going on right now. Once we see that our preferences aren't necessarily the gospel truth, things may be a bit more peaceful in the Christian community. In the beginning, I ran from Christian hip-hop because the secular hip-hop I used to listen to was bad. I used to listen to a lot of, Jay-Z and Eminem, and there was a lot of expletives and a lot of, vice. But then when I found out about the truth about hip-hop, pun intended, I realized that, hey, the music ain't really changed. It's me. I am the one who changed and the one who has to change still. This is why I conclude that we will never agree on music. Even now, some of you may not agree with everything that I said, but that's okay. That's just how it is. Long story short, we just have to be wise and we just have to exercise balance. If you agree, if you disagree, let me hear what you're thinking. Comment on the video, share your views. Let's see if we can come closer to even agreeing on this thing called music. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next one.